You can build the best product on the market and still lose to someone with a better brand. That's not an opinion, that's what's happening in real estate right now. The way people discover, evaluate, and choose where to live has fundamentally changed, and most developers and property managers are still marketing like it hasn't. My guest today has spent 20 years inside that gap, and she knows exactly how to close it. Mandy, welcome to MAXPower Insights.
Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to our discussion today. It's definitely timely.
Yes, well, it's about time.
Yeah.
Before we get into the big ideas today, I wanted to start it with your story. I want our listeners to understand the vantage point that you come from, because it's not the typical one. You started in a marketing agency, then went in-house for Colliers and Altus, then spent almost 9 years at the brand factory. And now you're running your own for Mandy brand while also taking on a VP role. That's every seat at the table. Was that by design, or did it kind of just unfold that way?
When I reflect back on my career, I do feel that it was a natural evolution. I started off at a marketing agency, one of the largest in Toronto at the time and still is, and that was back in 2006. I was brought in to account manage, but very quickly I was able to take a leadership role just due to circumstances in the agency, which really allowed me to learn all the ropes of the pre-con world. At that agency, I was able to work on the condominium space, but also the low-rise resort and hospitality. I was able to get exposed from the planning stage, from the architecture, interior design, all the way up to go-to-market strategy. So the agency world really also exposed me to what real estate brands are, how those come to life, and the overall process on how to create that brand and go to market with it. So that was, I look back at my career, and those first 5 years were huge learning experiences. I will give one example, and that was in 2007. It was one of my first condo launches with an awesome developer, and I was so excited. The event was buzzing. The room was full. It was at Front and Spadina, and that was the evening of the market crash. And so there I was, like, that must have been the most successful condo launch. Like, we must have sold out, because previously, condos were selling quite quickly. But the day after, it was like there was no sales. Jeez. So we had to step back and really re-look at what we were going to do. So it was all price point driven as well at that point. So it wasn't like we weren't going to go away. We had to come out with something different. Yeah. We needed to understand where the market was. So working with the builder and the architect, we actually had to redo the building because it was coming in too high type of thing. We needed a sweet price point. So then I think a few months later, when the market was starting to turn again, we ended up doing a campaign, and it was on the radio, breaking news, condos from $199.9 at Front and Spadina, and that really did a pivotal move. Yeah, so I really learned about the process of brand, how quickly the industry moves, how quickly decisions have to be made in the residential space. So I had this opportunity at Colliers. I went there to lead marketing and new business for Eastern Canada brokerage. So what I learned at Colliers wasn't just the commercial aspect of how to market office, industrial, retail, and hospitality, but it allowed me to understand the actual strategy behind it. And then from Altus Group, I was really exposed to the research aspect and how important that is from marketing and also just the industry as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, once again, every seat at the table, you're dealing with people who are buying all the way to the people who are investing to develop the property. Now here at Brand Factory, Mandy Group, that continues. You continue to learn. You've worked on some projects like Festival, Galleria on the Park, Friday Harbor, The Well, things like that people know in Toronto very well. I wanted you to tell us a little bit about your experience, not only here at the Brand Factory and Mandy, but with those projects specifically.
Absolutely, I've had the opportunity to work on some amazing projects. So it's interesting. When I first started the first 5 years of my career at the agency that I was referencing, it was more project specifics. I feel like it was like more towers, like one-off towers.
Yeah.
And then as, development in Toronto progressed, it was more master plan communities and really like creating place in like new places within the GTA, or I've also done marketing throughout North America. So of the projects that you mentioned, I'd say Galleria on the Park is very near and dear to my heart. It's a project that I'm actually still working on almost 7 years later. 7 to 8 years later, partially because of the fact that it is a mixed use community. So it's not just one tower, it's really creating a new place in Toronto. Galleria on the Park by Almadev. And Almadev is also a very important client to me because I worked with them from almost day one of my career at my other agency. And that was a client that I've grown with and has grown with me at the Brand Factory. And so what's interesting about Galleria on the Park, and when we got involved, that client got us involved very, very early. So even before the plans, like we knew that there were 8 towers on the site, but the number one thing was, how are we going to work with the city and how are we going to work with the councillor? Because Galleria on the Park was a very established residential community. So even before we started to market the condo, we created, it was called Reimagine Galleria. So really creating like an educational environment for the community to ask questions about what was going to happen so that there was like no surprises type of thing. So that was kind of how we started, even just communicating kind of what's to come. And those learnings helped the developer and the whole teams orchestrate what now Galleria on the Park, we didn't even have the name, was going to become. So then when it's time to start to go to market, we got to create a really beautiful brand. And so that's Galleria on the Park. And since then we've launched 3 towers, which you can see are rising and occupied, and there'll be more towers to come. And it's a brand new park, a brand new community center, brand new retail. It's really giving back to the community and making it feel like continuation of the existing place. And I think just hearing people, like knowing people that live there, people are happy with what's coming there.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like always for these new like developments that are popping up, because they're everywhere now, it's, people can hear, oh, there's a new development, coming up near me. Oh, it's the shopping mall I went to. And there can be that initial kind of like hold back. Oh, I don't know what you're doing with this place, that people aren't really sure of to begin with. But knowing that you guys were able to kind of develop a whole story and a perspective for people to now, 7 years later, be happy with and living in, and it's continuing to grow, is amazing. And I think now with the Brand Factory and where it's growing, I wanted to tie in to see like, where is Mandy in all of this, specifically with like the Mandy brand alongside it. So where did the two of them fit together on?
Exactly. So Mandy brand was an awesome opportunity that I took on with my partner, the Brand Factory. So Mandy brand was an opportunity where I was able to show my entrepreneurial spirit and be able to provide my clients with one-on-one service and strategy. So I've been doing that for about 2 years, and I've gotten some great clients under my belt. But there was an opportunity to have a dual role as vice president at the Brand Factory. So they're complementary roles. So as president of Mandy brand, I'm able to provide a boutique relationship with my clients and boutique service, but they get the benefit of the Brand Factory group ecosystem. Instead of my clients having to go to multiple suppliers for marketing or multiple resources, everything's under one roof, and I'm able to understand what the business problem is or what the opportunity is, and be able to seamlessly solve that with different services that are really speak to everything that real estate marketing requires. So if that's traditional marketing to digital to AI, which we'll
All
talk
the
about
above,
a little
yeah.
bit, to immersive experiences now as well, which is like very important. The whole consumer journey, where I'm able to kind of help piece that together for my clients with
Amazing.
Mandy brand.
Yeah, mentioning that as well, I feel like, with so many changes happening in the real estate industry and everything, we're seeing a lot of companies and developments and things like that switching up and pivoting on their marketing. But some of them aren't, and they're still using kind of that old playbook of marketing. And I wanted to see from where your opinion is, what some of those old marketing playbook sort of tactics are that you're still seeing today.
Yeah, I think consumer behaviors, or not, I know consumer behavior is very different right now in terms of just how they're finding information online. So previously, people were looking on Google and then maybe going to a website. Right now, a lot of the search is happening through AI, and a lot of businesses don't understand that and don't know how to show up, and that's something that we're navigating with our clients as well. Just simply showing up, and I think we'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. Showing up is the most important thing, So let's imagine for a second I'm a developer, whoever you may be attending a meeting with. How do you instigate that, conversation at the beginning when you go in for a consultation or something like that, while also making sure that you're staying unique to you and the brand factory and Mandy brand and all that sort of stuff? How do you make sure you keep that all aligned?
So at any new business, I'm never going in talking about logos, brands, etc. I'm always going in to understand what the opportunity and the problem is as well. It's a lot of probing, depending on who the client is. What I find is there's kind of two different clients. There's those clients that know marketing and know how to do marketing, and then there's clients that actually haven't done marketing or haven't really maybe felt like they needed to do marketing. Those are some of them. I like working with both. I'll be honest. But it's very different. So just leaning on that latter one, I think a lot of the times is even just their corporate identity. Like they haven't really even thought about how they're positioning from a corporate perspective. And that is really like the true element of trust as well. And that needs to funnel down to the project level as well.
Yeah, for sure. I want to shift gears for a second towards the purpose-built rental, which we've been talking about so much recently. Traditionally, we're seeing a lot of people who used to be building condos, townhomes, things of that nature, starting to make that shift. And I feel like maybe as an outsider, they're not thinking that much about how they should be pivoting their marketing. Are you seeing them kind of adjusting for that, or is it still staying the same?
So, very interesting time in terms of the pivot to purpose-built rental. So just to give you some background in terms of my experience in the purpose-built rental space, I actually started to work on purpose-built rentals in Toronto about 8 years ago. The Montgomery at Yonge and Eglinton was one of the first projects with Rockport that I worked with. Their property manager is Rhapsody, and that's a client of mine. And I was actually talking to my client in preparation of this podcast, and I was like, is it fair to say that the Montgomery was kind of the renaissance of purpose-built rental in the GTA? And it absolutely was. It was one of the first of its kind. I actually remember when I was at Collier's, I was at Real Estate Forum, and I don't know if it was who exactly from Rockport was speaking about this project, but it was before, in the preliminary planning, and they were talking about purpose-built rental, and I was like, what is this? Like, I knew about it from like New York or other world-class cities, but it wasn't anything that we knew about in Toronto. So I have been working on purpose-built rentals for a while, and I've learned at first I used to approach it kind of like a condominium. Like I remember with the Montgomery, we did do a sales office, and I don't think we ever really like needed that in the end. If there's a developer that's pivoting their existing condo site to a purpose-built rental, I think that they are getting it wrong at the very beginning, because they've spent so much time planning and designing that specific project. You can't just change it to purpose-built rental. And let me step back a little bit in terms of why that's the case. So for condo, for example, you will put amenity spaces on multiple floors to maximize FSA. You might have the penthouse as like a spa. You might have a gym below. Like there might be 3 amenity spaces. For a purpose-built rental, that could pose some very critical problems. So depending on the developer's lease-up strategy, some want to lease up quicker, some want to lease up to maximize like price, or so there's different strategies. Ultimately, everybody wants to have a successful tour to conversion rate. And in order to do that, it needs to be a seamless tour. So the data says that prospective renters will do most of their research online. So you need to have like that tight story online, so that by the time they're coming for the tour, they're almost just needing that tour to like make their decision. So what I've noticed from a lot of some of the leader purpose-built rentals is that they are looking to the hospitality for that leader of the tour and their leasing team. So think Disney, Four Seasons, hiring that type of talent that really understands like how to build a relationship with prospects. So that tour is all about getting to know them, showing them the amenities and the model space, like the models, really creating like why do they want to live there, that relationship. But think about it, if the amenity spaces are on like multiple stories and the model suites are here, like that tour path gets disconnected even just from the elevator wait times.
Yeah.
So that's like one thing, just the flow of a purpose-built rental and how it's designed from an amenity space is critical. Also, from a rental perspective, you need to have like that backup space, like you're managing these buildings day to day. It's not the same as just having a condo board. So you have to like be able to account for those aspects as well. Then from like a branding perspective, condo you're selling once. So both need like great positioning and great brands. But a rental you're selling, like leasing time and time again. Really that brand and that story needs to stand the test of time. That also circles back to even just like the materials that you're selecting. It needs to be beautiful, but it needs to have longevity as well, because multiple renters.
Yeah.
And then speaking with, just from my experience in speaking and looking at some plans, is some of the condo developers that are pivoting to purpose-built rentals, they love design. They love that like high-end spa, certain things that maybe are really challenging to clean in a rental and like have that uptake, right? Yeah. So I think it's a different mindset that the condo developer needs to get into from a purpose-built rental perspective, just from like all the fundamentals that I kind of went through. And then even just from a marketing perspective, like a lot of the times that one of the biggest questions that I get is like, well, when do you start marketing for a purpose-built rental? And I'd say from a condo and a purpose-built rental, it's never too early to actually start to think about the brand. Before you think about the brand, though, you're doing strategy in terms of understanding the audience and the positioning. But in terms of when I'm going to go to market with a purpose-built rental brand, it's going to be about 60 to 90 days before you want occupancy. Okay. Because you want to be, I believe in like a hotel-ready building where you can actually tour them as opposed to having a leasing center. Obviously, it depends on the client and like or the developer and what their level of risk is. I'm talking quite generally right now as well. Every project is different. But generally I like a hotel ready building so that people can just come and tour and like ideally like sign the lease.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like there's so many like moving parts to, that pivot for developers, and who, even if they were purpose built in the early stages like the Montgomery, or they were pivoting from condo to this now, there's so many things that they have to think about.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that they need to be thinking about? We're talking about how they're moving people through the tour and stuff. Is there anything else they need to be thinking about before they even break ground? Right when they're first starting to go, okay, it's time to build a purpose-built rental. Is there things that they should be thinking about on that stage that you would be bringing up in a consultation or anything like that for the beginning of this kind of brand development?
I'm also coming across developers that are from like the commercial space and like they have institutional partners, and now they're getting into purpose-built rental, and they've never done marketing even from a corporate perspective. And I'm not saying like marketing like a newspaper ad. I'm saying like creating like their brand identity. Like who do you stand for? Like who are you? So so I think that's something that you start early. Like if you're making that shift into rental, as a lot of people are as well, you need to have a clear story in terms of like that trust and that credibility and why rent from that developer. But then it also circles back to like, it's actually who's managing the day-to-day on the site, like the property manager, because like I said, they're the ones that have the relationship. They're the ones that are servicing the tenants. And I think they're also the ones that should be, speaking to the tenants before the rent renewal and whatnot,
for sure.
And like understanding that, because obviously retention's critical.
I feel like being, you said earlier about kind of crafting a story, making a story, and it starts with the people, the leasing, manager who is making that tour, for example, all the way to the end time where, they're trying to build retention with the property manager. I think it goes, all the way through from start to finish. And as I said earlier, there's so many moving parts. I feel like nowadays, with everything changing and evolving, we're seeing tools to help them build this from the startup, help maybe even make that story. And I'd like to hear your perspective on AI capabilities in marketing and with the real estate industry. I think it's a bit of a unique one. I feel like so many people nowadays, they go, oh, it's going to make my caption for this post for the marketing of my building, or generate me an image of what this building will look like in 20 years, But for you, I feel like you make it more of a strategic capability thing. It assists you with that strategy. And I want to know if you could tell us a little bit more about how you utilize that.
Well, I'm loving AI. I'm pretty obsessed with it. I'm definitely embracing it in my day-to-day. I brainstorm with it as well to like help strategize.
100%.
I also brainstorm with real life people, which is still important. This could become like a little dangerous. But okay, so from a marketing perspective across pre-con, resale, purpose-built rental, really any industry right now, like things are shifting. So it's interesting. I know a lot about it and I keep hearing about it probably from my network, but I'll ask people that I meet, have you heard of AEO? And a lot of people are like, absolutely, like, I don't know, what's AEO? And so AEO is Answer Engine Optimization. And what this is what SEO was in the early thousands. So I think everybody knows what SEO was, search engine optimization. And in the early thousands, when it was just starting to be a thing, a small shoe company, for example, could outrank Nike on Google with a modest budget and the right keywords. Fast forward a year from that wouldn't have been possible because budgets, Nike caught on and all the other. So what that was, it was barrier of entry was very low at a point, and those companies that got in actually benefited quite well. Now SEO is still a thing. It's very important, but it's shifting in terms of the importance. And so I think from like a real estate marketing perspective, and when I look back, like we're an industry that is like late adopters in a lot of marketing. Like I even think about my digital strategy planning and when I started to do Facebook and Instagram. Like it was late adopters for real estate. And I think right now there's an opportunity for some of the developers that are seeing this AEO opportunity to get in early, similar to what it was like in the early thousands for SEO. So what AEO is are you using chat? Are you using Gemini? Are you using Perplexity?
Claude,
I don't really even care what you're using, but people are searching, and then is your business showing up? So I've been doing this with like certain purpose-built rentals, like at Yonge and Eglinton, for example. Like, why isn't that building showing up? But it's very important to show up, because right now there's stats that are showing that people aren't even like leaving the answer area. That answer is so credible, and people are trusting it so much to make a decision. Like, this is in real estate, but it's also like in travel, restaurants, like it's across every industry. So what I'm working with a lot of my clients is, how do you show up? So sometimes it's like, well, I don't want a whole new website. Is that like what I need to do? No, you don't always need a new website. Although if your website's pretty dated, like let's have a conversation about that. But it's things that you could do to enhance. So for example, well, it's not so easy. You need coders to do it or understand it. But it's just to make sure that the AI agents can read your website. So if you have a slow website or you have like JavaScript, it's just going past it. Structuring your website pages to be like an answer-based content. There's even things that you could do on the back end that aren't consumer-facing to like help. So now is an opportunity to get there. And I think you will see results like from all businesses if you start to adopt it sooner than later. Like it's interesting. I kind of say there's business leaders that are saying that they're going to watch to see what happens with AI. And then there's business leaders that have a FOMO of AI. And those are the ones that I actually want to work with, because I think you should have a fear of missing out with AI. Like you really need to adopt it. You can't just like look to see what's going to happen, because everything's shifting so quickly.
Yeah, and I feel like it's shifting so quickly, and it's here to stay. You know, it's something that so many people are. I feel like a lot of percentages probably don't even use Google anymore. They go to ChatGPT to ask what's the coolest bar near me, for example. You know, and it's changing the way that people use the internet and interact with the things around them. And you know, what we just talked about, the search engine finding, all of that sort of stuff, it's completely different now than it was X amount of time before, you know? And is there anything else that these developers or anything like that should be thinking about within their marketing specifically in regards to utilizing AI to its best? You know, I mentioned the whole caption and image generation, not necessarily that, but are we looking at things right now where people are utilizing that AI to kind of assist them in any other way for their marketing? I mean,
absolutely. AI makes everybody sound good. So, but you have to be careful with that, because it can also make everybody sound the same, right? So I think it's, definitely like use it as a tool, but you also need to review it and make sure that it's staying true to your brand positioning.
For sure. And I feel like you see so much, like you go on Instagram or even LinkedIn or whatever it is, and you see so many things that look the same, sound the same, because, you know, it could just be their brand identity, or it could be because of AI. And I think it's very important, especially nowadays, to kind of keep yourself unique and different.
I think a big thing with AI being and our world being just so digital right now is we can't underestimate like in real life and the relationships and the trust. And now more than ever, people are valuing that real life interaction and relationships. So I think it's knowing that it's a digital world and that's where a lot of our audience and consumers are getting their information. So put it all out there. Like one thing that's interesting is like prices. Do you put the price of a rental or a condo on the website, or do you get somebody to, or do you wait for that like one-on interaction? I don't know. What do you think? Do you put the price on?
I think, I mean, unless it's like a super bougie, you know, kind of like private sort of thing, no, I'm thinking of those buildings that have 19 units that sell for God knows how much, right? For those sorts of buildings, I feel like that, when there's a private aspect, no, you don't put it on. You show the story, you show the aesthetic, you show, oh, when you live here, you're gonna be so fancy, stuff like that. And then that's something you tell them in, the walkthrough or whatever. But if it's, the kind of these higher unit counts, in the heart of downtown, where the people that are going to be living there are students, are going to be younger people who are just getting their foot in the door in the industry or whatever it may be. I feel like that's when you want to be transparent, and I feel like nowadays it's kind of hard to know whether or not something is being transparent with you. Is this real? Is
100%,
it kind of makes we have this really cool opportunity where you can put out so much information so quickly. But now is the time where people are, I hope, are taking a step back and going, okay, wait, is this information true? Is what I'm seeing here true? Is this building going to actually follow through with their promise of this whole storyboard? And so I think in that sense, there's a difference there that the developer or whoever that the Mandys of the world should be thinking about. But yeah, I think
again, every project's specific.
Yes.
But I like putting the prices.
Yeah.
Like, why, even for those high-end projects? Like, what are you hiding?
Yeah, what are you shy about?
It takes away that price conversation in real life, right? Ultimately, like, we want to have an authentic, real conversation once you get people in real life. The price can be a deterrent. So I think it's an interesting thing, especially with rental. Like I said, these renters are doing most of their research online, and they just want an awesome tour path. But they also want to know the price. So instead of building that relationship, about like how your day was, like
the filler stuff.
What are you excited about this project? When they start to ask about price, it kind of just changes the dialogue a little. So I think that's something, like, back in the day, I don't think we'd ever really put price on the website, but right now I really like it.
Yeah. And also in hand with what I said about the whole transparency thing, like, I feel like if you're taking so long to craft the tour, and you're so conscious about the way that it flows and the conversations that are being had, I think full transparency, like price, is important, because you don't want to all of a sudden, the leasing manager, whoever, says something that the people are unaware of, and it's a negative.
Exactly.
They walk in, they don't know how much this place costs, then you say a price and it's way out their budget, and now that whole entire interaction's soured.
Exactly.
So yeah, I feel like in a world where there's so many things happening, it's important to like be transparent, because in the end, that's always going to be helpful. It's always, you get those people in the door who are already seeing that price and going, okay, like, this is in my budget, let's go see it. What makes this place unique?
Yeah. And from that, like, super high end, like, if somebody's going to buy that product, they're going to have that money.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're not walking in the door if it's way out of their range or whatever, But today we've talked about so many things. We've talked about your story, the do's and don'ts kind of real estate marketing, as well as purpose-built rental, AI, which we just talked about. So many things all encapsulated in a couple of minutes. And I wanted to give you an opportunity, kind of as the last thing, if we missed any points or anything you want to drive home to the viewers at home, what would that one thing kind of be to tell them?
So I think knowing kind of who we're talking to here, it's kind of like starting off your career as well, or maybe you're already like in the industry. But I think from a professional perspective, I like that I have many different lenses, and that's been because I've had many different seats. So don't get too comfortable in the same seat. From a real estate perspective, I think get a lens in all the different aspects of the market. Even if you are passionate about marketing, you will benefit from learning the business.
Yeah, exactly. Don't get comfortable in your own seat, I think, is a great thing to say, because so many people do, and with the world changing so fast nowadays, it's important to keep up with it. And if you have that leg up where something that maybe that other person didn't attempt to learn, it's a huge benefit. And especially for the younger people who are, educating themselves right now about the real estate market, maybe thinking of getting in it in some form of, whatever it may be, from marketing or account management or whatever. It's important to, be a jack of all trades.
Yeah, and for those young people, I would say, learn AI.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's going to be an up. Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like a big differentiator between generations.
And I'm also going to say that for the young people, but also for my parents' ages, learn AI as well.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, I feel like one thing that we talked about is how many seats you've been in. So just very briefly, where do we find Mandy Brands? Where do we find you if I'm the developer at home that's watching, that wants to reach out? Where do we find you?
So I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so you can always send me a message on LinkedIn, or you can go to my website, mandybrand.com.
Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate your time and conversation about all of the fun things in real estate marketing. And thank you for watching MAXPower Insights.